pedal when the lane moving fast. Hey, let them all cross. If they hate, then let them hate and make a bigger boss. Hey.
This episode is brought to you by SPI Logistics, the premier freight agent logistics firm in North America. For over 40 years, SPI has been diligently building the most successful freight agent network to provide first-class relationships for our shippers, receivers, and carrier partners. We are more than another transportation network. We are a dedicated team of professionals united by one singular purpose, and that is to expedite our agents' success. All of our agents are set up for success on day one, as they are provided with a full suite of support staff that is ready to assist them with everything from after-hours emergencies to financial and administrative needs on a no-fee basis. This way, you can focus on continuing to grow your business. There is no financial risk to start, and you have the ability to earn up to 75% in commissions. If you are looking to take control of your financial future and build your business with the backing of one of the most successful logistics firms in North America, visit www.spi3pl.com to learn more. Do me a favor and let them know that the Freight Coach sent you.
What is up, ladies and gentlemen? We are back. We are live. It is the Freight Coach Podcast, the top podcast in transportation, coming to you guys every single weekday, 8:30 a.m. Pacific, 10:30 Central, to break down some industry headlines. But most importantly, you guys provide some actual insight into what you can do with all of this information. If this is your first time tuning in, welcome. This is the real side of freight, ladies and gentlemen. And I say that before every single show. And what I mean by that is I only speak with transportation professionals because at the end of the day, you guys, I want to talk to the right individuals who have done what you're looking to do or who are currently doing what you're trying to achieve. So you can take that information, apply it, utilize it, and see a meaningful difference in your business and your life. Happy Monday, everybody. I got a very special guest for you guys here today. I'm going to bring him up in a second, but sales is like the number one thing I get asked about all the time, you guys. How do I find more customers? What direction do I go? Should I just call everybody? And, you know, there's a literal art behind business development, you guys, and something that I have come to really accept here over the last 15 months more than anything. So we're going to talk about identifying your ICP, business development, all of that fun stuff. So I have Mr. Will Haraway on the show today. Will, thank you so much for joining me.
Hey, pleasure to be here, buddy. I love the show, so I'm honored to get to join you on the morning.
Dude, I appreciate it, man. And, it's one of those, we cross paths at conferences and everything. And, reading Kara's book here and then seeing some of the excerpts from you inside of that as well. And it really is just, I kind of opened up my eyes to a lot different ways of business development. But before we get into any of that stuff, man, how'd you get your start in freight, Will? What brought you into transportation?
Oh, that's hilarious. Yes. So basically, I got through it in marketing because the first agency that I worked for, and I live in Atlanta, Georgia, the first agency I worked for was an all-tech marketing agency. And they had a very, very small supply chain practice. When I say that, I mean 2 clients that worked in supply chain. And I was young and I was a dude, obviously. So they just sort of threw it at me and were like, hey, what do you think about this? And I took to it, I took to it. It was American Software, PKMS, which really dates myself to even say that acronym. I know we love acronyms in supply chain, but really just kind of took to it and understood how to market it. Very fact-based, very data-based. I mean, it's very black and white, but also driven by market conditions that can sometimes be outside of the industry, kind of as you learn at a young age that really just about everything influences and impacts the way that the supply chain moves, So that's helped. So I understood that early on, and it really helped me in terms of thought leadership and, public relations and, demand generation. But because it's when these things happen that they need these freight experts to guide them, Yeah. And so that's really how I got my start. And I moved on to Manhattan Associates here in Atlanta and worked there for 7 years, which was cool because Manhattan being a best of breed provider when that was kind of the only thing for a while, they have every node in the supply chain. They've got transportation. They had the original, it's called Manhattan Carrier. They still have it, but really what it is digital freight brokering and routing and optimization and, taking right turns because it saves fuel, that kind of stuff. But so I got to know every piece of the supply chain working there. And by the end of it, it was almost like going to supply chain grad school. And I started my own agency at that point. Yeah. And just sticking to the niche, man, just staying within this niche because there's so much opportunity. I mean, you see it, you've got a Freight Coach podcast, and this was, 10 years ago. And then met up with Kara, who had been doing a similar stuff, but she was more on the freight side of working with Echo and XPO and those sort of folks. So when we came together, it was like, well, how can we use some things like thought leadership, public relations, analyst relations as part of a demand generation campaign? And that's how lead coverage was formed, man. And we're 6 years into it.
Yeah, man. I mean, you guys are everywhere with it. And, but like you brought up a lot of really, really good points there, Will. Mm-hmm. And, to me, it is about being that expert for your customers. And, every industry is saturated. And I feel like a lot of us are, obviously we're inside of transportation. So we think like for some reason we're an isolated industry, that there's a ton of competition and everything else. But a lot of the, people that I know outside of this industry, they're all dealing with the exact same stuff, but they all really coming down to the exact same thing is you need to find your niche. You need to become undeniably better than everybody else inside of that niche. And, I feel like there's, paralysis analysis really is the first thing that comes to my mind when it comes to a business development standpoint in transportation, right? Because there's so much that's out there, right? You're the word $1 trillion industry. You're like, oh, we got to be everything. We got to be everywhere. And the more and more that I've been out on my own, the more I realize that couldn't be further from the truth. The more success I've had from a business development perspective has been singular focus. This is what we specialize in. This is what we do. Now, and again, I always like to clarify this with existing customers. If they come to us with additional modes of transportation, we will entertain that at that time if we are confident in it. But our sales focus from a business development standpoint only is open deck transportation, full truckload. That is it. If you're LTL primary, as it says in the book, man, like disqualify. I don't even want to reach out to them. If they're 85% LTL, it's not worth my time from a revenue generation standpoint.
That's exactly right, man. It's about knowing exactly who you're marketing to, and then marketing to them, not relentlessly, but politely, and politely persistent is the way to, but always offering, not always asking, like, can I have your business? Can I have a demo? Can I have a meeting, et cetera, et cetera. Can we meet at this trade show that we're both going to? Sure, absolutely. But also giving insight, like, hey, you're a cross-border shipper. The tariffs are coming maybe in next month again. We'll see. But the we'll see and the unpredictability of it is a part where you can come in and offer some guidance. Like, okay, we know that this is screwed up a little bit. We know that it's a little bit haphazard in the way these decisions are being made, but maybe you could take that risk out of it by upping your inventory in your warehouses in the United States. Maybe you could just hold on to the inventory down in Mexico and let it sit there until you have a clearer picture as to what's about to happen. And so to be able to offer some thought leadership from that perspective, that again is purely for your audience to say, like, these are some things that you can do with the ancillary message being like, of course we can help you do that, but regardless, you need to be thinking about these 3 things in order to shore up your position for the next quarter or 2 quarters, something like that.
Yeah. No, and I'm right there with you. I think that, I think a lot of people overlook, Will, where they're actually at in the development stage of a new prospect, right? I think everybody goes for the kill way too soon, right? Like you brought up the whole, hey, we're going to be at the same trade show, or maybe you're contacting them, for the first time or second time, and you're going straight after the jugular from a lot of that stuff. And you're not actually focused on, gathering information and really, because like a lot of it for me, I know, from my perspective, I have found exponentially more success inside of cold calling. I don't go after a lot of the large enterprise shippers who, if you call them, they don't answer their phone, right? Like you do, there's a certain level of revenue where a lot of them are email only at that point. But, for a lot of the ones that we're going after, we have found a lot more success in the cold call business development angle with it. But again, a lot of it is for us. First call is like, hey, here's who we are. This is what we do. You're inside of the region that we like to run. Just kind of like verifying, do you actually have full truckload? And hey, is it cool if I follow back up with you in a month? I'm not here to ask for your business or anything like that, or, add me to anything. Like that's just how I really like to approach it and attack it. Now, back to what I was saying there, how many people do you think from a sales rep perspective, business development perspective, overlook where they're actually at in the the business development, path, we'll call it?
Yeah. I mean, there are several really great ones that don't, but I feel like the tools that are out there and available to people make that easier than ever. I mean, just look at HubSpot, for instance. It enables you to log every part of that buyer's journey, just based on those interactions. And sometimes if you have it set up right, it'll do it automatically. You know what I mean? And so exactly how much they engage. The idea is engagement. So if you know how much they're engaging with you or with your content, then that opens other doors to understand what the next move is. And obviously you're a person, you read people, you're a salesperson. That's the biggest part of your job, right? Is to read the room. And that's great. You should always read the room. But if you have some additional help and tools and data points that are be like, hey, this person spent 3 minutes reading your thought leadership piece, and you should be able to see that, with a combination of Google Analytics and your HubSpot downloads and which form fills they're engaging with, then all of a sudden you have got a very clear picture of where this person is in the buyer's journey. Mm-hmm. And if you know where they are in the buyer's journey, then you know where you need to be in the buyer's journey. So nurturing and going through your process as far as where the lead is, that's to me, that's the most important thing. I mean, obviously we all love it when a sale happens on the first meeting, but how often does that happen? It's great when it happens and you always remember it, but it doesn't happen all the time. Most of them are multi-touch, multi-engagement, multi-meetings, demos, and proving your value, know, and or should I say time to value, right?
Yeah. How does somebody identify who their ICP is? Like, are you guys working with people on that?
100%.
So what data? How are you guys working with your guys' clients to say like, hey, this is probably what you should be going after?
Well, yeah, that's a really good question, because especially in freight and in supply chain, we'll get the answer of our ICP is everything from a mom and pop shipper carrier to Home Depot, mm-hmm. And it's like, well, that's not really an ICP now, is it? That's the widest net you can possibly cast. Yeah. So we'll go through an exercise where it's like, what's the best fit for you right now? Like what companies, target size, revenue size, industry, commodity, like you said, like LTL, dry van, like get into even those specifics. Like really get specific about it. Like what is the best fit for you right now? Okay, now we're going to put that in that box. What's the best fit for you aspirationally? Well, so that's almost like could be a fit. So we'll take that. And that's important too. Like this is where we're headed. We feel like we're going to be huge in food and beverage because of these products that we're delivering and these partnerships that we've made and so on and so forth, right? And that's another box. But to me, the most important box is what doesn't fit at all. What does not fit at all today? And man, if you are trying to sell $500 million revenue clients, but if you brought one in, it would break your operations, then it's not the time. You know what I mean? It's just not, like, so let's put that aside. Let's put that in the not fit. And then let's go to the bottom end and how much money are you making out of these quote unquote mom and pop accounts that you have?
Yeah.
How much margin are you getting? Or is this just activity, gets the sales guy a commission and, move on. But is it good for the company? Is it good for the bottom line? Is it good for your revenue? And if the answer is, whatever threshold you've set to make it worth it, if it's under that, cut those guys out. We don't need to be spending, just like you said earlier, we don't need to be spending any time on that. That's just wasted energy. And even if you bring them on as a client, it's just causing you pain because you're not making any money off of it, but you're still you're still putting the same energy forth to make it successful.
Yeah.
So that's the key. Find exactly where you are.
That is, I think, another extremely overlooked component as well there, Will, that you're bringing up is it's like, you brought up a bunch of really good points there. And I hope you guys go back and listen to this, especially if you're listening to this on the replay, which goes up later on today. But like, man, knowing what you shouldn't be going after is so crucial, right? Like my business today, in today's, like if somebody came to me and said, hey, if you're going to move our freight, you got to be able to do 100 truckloads a day for us. Not going to be able to happen, right? Like we are not set up for that. But and then also inversely, if there's a shipper that you're going after who's like, hey, you know what? Yeah, we have truckloads, but like it's only one a month or one every 2 months or something like that. Another thing that probably shouldn't be going after that as well, because is it actually worth your time? I think there's a failure to identify that like you need revenue, but you need that as much consistency as you can try and build up inside of that, area, right? So it's like maybe you're sitting there and you're identifying, for example, hey, you know what? We want people who average no less than 15 full truckloads in a month or 10 full truckloads in a month, whatever that looks like. And then, really identify that wheelhouse. And then maybe it's a maximum of 100 full truckloads a month, right? Maybe it's 25 loads a week or something like that. And that's inside of your wheelhouse and your capabilities because, again, I'm sure you guys have probably seen this or you've heard of this, Will, where somebody actually gets to the finish line and they're like, we can't onboard you if you can't, implement this EDI system, if you can't do X, Y, and Z, because you don't have the finances to even move their freight before you even accept a rate confirmation from them.
Right. No, of course. I mean, in every business, it's whatever those tools might be. In my business, there are certain tools that we need you to have. If we don't have it, if you don't have a CRM in place, I don't know how we're going to be able to track and measure your success. And really what I mean by that, how do I measure my success? How do I get my time to value? Because I mean, we need to prove our value just as much, and our success is tied into your success. So it's the same sort of thing, even though we're, in two different industries, but you've got to have the right tools in place or else it's not going to be successful for either one of us.
What do you say to those individuals out there who are, maybe they can't afford a CRM or they're not aware of any CRMs that are going to work inside of their price point with where their business currently is?
You can afford a CRM, guaranteed. There are so many amongst different price points. I mean, hell, even HubSpot has like a starter kit, you know what I mean? And a starter kit is better than nothing. And there is a bunch of stuff out there that you can research and find. So many people will end up with something like Salesforce. Salesforce is the big bad wolf or the elephant in the room. They're the biggest but they're not for everybody. Yet they're a sort of a Ferrari, and sometimes you just need a Lincoln Navigator or something, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So, but you can get one, and it's important because you need to be able to track what you're doing.
So inside of a CRM, for example, is this something where you can do like an integration into your inbox to where it says, hey, you had a good conversation with this person 2 weeks ago, follow up with them based on your notes? Kind of walk that through, because like I've actually avoided having a lot of CRM companies who are like inside of transportation come and talk about this, because I kind of feel like they're only trying to sell, hey, this is why you need our CRM. I want more of like kind of like a basic overview style thing.
It's about look, they all have their pros and cons. There's no question. Just like any business, they all have strengths and weaknesses. But what you're talking about, it really goes back to what we said, at the outset of this conversation, is like, how do you track the stages in your lead or prospect? Sorry, not lead, prospect. But how do you track the stages through that? And that is through automating your email, and it logs it automatically, or being able to, very simply and easily go and log a call and some notes on it, so that all of this is visible, not only to you who's trying to do this job, but visible to everyone that's in the HubSpot, and certainly to reporting, to be able to say, these deals are progressing. We are making momentum here. As a big picture in the reporting as a whole, to the head of sales, to the chief revenue officer, to the chief financial officer, to the CEO. That's really what we're talking about here, is visibility and reporting, so that everyone within your organization knows exactly what's happening with that lead. And it's easier for you if you have a CRM that tracks it automatically for you. Yeah. And that is the absolute benefit of it. It's the benefit to the salesperson. It's a benefit to the sales lead. It's a benefit to the executive team, and it's benefit to your marketing team, because again, we want to be attributing how these leads are getting to you, and how the content that we're putting in front of them, how effective it is. And that's what all of this does. That's really the whole point. We want to know if we check subject lines and A/B test them. We check the tone of the thought leadership that we're creating. Is it a byline article from the product lead or the chief technology officer? Is that better, or is it a customer case study, customer video? Could be any and all of those things, but that's the point of being able to track it, and to be able to see what the most effective things that are helping these salespeople convert prospects into deals. And that's what we're all trying to do. When we're all swimming in the same direction, then and that's probably the main. If I'm selling why you should get a CRM, that's probably the main selling point. Get a CRM so that everybody in your company can can row in the same direction.
Do you think more companies have a lot more data or more of a story to tell already through the business that they're actually doing? They just don't know how to compile it to make it actually tell a story out there to the market.
Man, you're teeing me up. That is literally what I do.
Yeah.
That is like my role, to be honest with you. Like, every company's interesting, just like every baby's cute. You know what I mean? So every company's interesting. There's nothing that I love more than coming into a company and figuring out what that is. Yeah. And it could be everything from doing drayage in every port in the United States, including the inland ports. It could be the way that you are able to track cargo theft through your partnerships with somebody like Highway, or you know what I mean? Like, and even if you get very, very specific, like you are the truckload provider that uses your partnership with the supply chain risk company to make sure that you don't drive your ice cream shipments during the middle of the day in Texas during the summer. You make those shipments at 2 a.m. or whatever, like those kinds of stories are out there. And you just kind of have to go in and pull them out of people. You pull them out of every corner of the organization. But once you're able to find them, then all of a sudden, even if it's not your core business, it gives you a platform in which to speak as an expert and bring in engagement that then can translate into business across your entire portfolio. And that is, every company has that thing. And I mean, we have several different 3PLs, which none of which compete against each other because they all do wildly different things in wildly different industries. So that when you sit there and look at it, you're like, well, 3PL, that's a one size fits all. Absolutely not.
Mm-hmm.
Definitely not. And it's this. I think it's the same with every freight broker and every supply chain kind of softwares, TMS, WMS, supply chain planning. There's something interesting about all of them.
Yeah. And that's what I want a lot of people to really focus in on what is their one thing, right? Like what's that one thing that they're out there in the market for? Because, I know a lot of freight brokers that try and think like they think that they're a 3PL and I'm like, but you're not a 3PL at all, and it's like, who are you, and I feel like having that identity as a company I think it's a very overlooked thing. And, again, as somebody who's bootstrapped his businesses, and Will, you understand this as well, man, you kind of want to do anything that helps you pay your bills right away.
That's right.
But that's more of a short-term fix. I think you need to think, from a sales rep's perspective, whether you own the company or not, you're trying to go for that recurring revenue, right? Because it is exponentially more expensive from a fiscal standpoint and a time standpoint to be constantly filling your pipeline with new prospects because you're recycling customers day in and day out or week in and week out. So it's like, identify who you are. All right, whatever that is. My company's identity, we are open deck through and through, full truckload. That is what we do. That is our jam, and that's what we develop business off of. But we also know that it is a lot cheaper for us to make sure our current customers are happy and satisfied, and our messaging of who we are and our company's identity is screamed from the mountaintops than it is to reset every 90 days because you had a bad experience, and then you're like, oh, no, I'm going to go change course.
That's right. Yeah, yes, retention is key. 100%, my friend. You gotta stay with retention as well as bringing in folks. There are two different tracks, and they're equally important, I would say.
Yeah, and it's really identifying that though, right? And then again, it does tie into who's your ICP. How are you tracking this data? How are you running with this information? And then again, it's like, it's all trial and error when you're beginning, right? Like I wish more people would give themselves a little bit more grace, Will, to know that like, dude, you're not going to have it all figured out. You're going to stumble over your words. You're going to mess up. But that's the whole point of it, right? Like you have to get out there and you have to stop thinking eventually, and you just got to act. And what you will come to realize is there is no big bad wolf out there who's waiting to bite your head off or, tell you off. That doesn't exist. It exists in your own mind. But like, man, as soon as you kind of get in there and then you get into that flow state of business development, for me, it's like, it's setting those parameters. It's following that day in and day out. And then you're trying to identify, how do I get a little bit more outreach in a day, right? Maybe I'm just increasing it by 5 more a day after you've kind of ran that course for, 30, 60 or 90 days there.
Yeah. And I think you really hit on something there, actually. So when you talked about, if you identify what you are and what you are good at, what your niche is, and then you focus on, okay, and this is exactly who I'm selling to, and this is exactly who I am perfect for. And now you're completely aligned and you can move forward in a very, very good strategic way.
No, absolutely. And Will, I want to be mindful of your time, man. I know we're up at the top of the hour. I like to keep these shows action-packed and to the point. But man, how does anybody reach out to you guys? Are you going to be at any conferences where people can come up and come talk to you?
Yes. I mean, we are always at the shows. We were at Manifest, obviously. I was at TPM last week where they broke a lot of news at TPM. My goodness, John Bolton was the keynote. Yeah. It was a lot happening there. The tariffs were announced. You can always reach me at will@leadcoverage.com, and certainly on LinkedIn. Our website is leadcoverage.com. There's all kinds of ways to connect there. Kara is all over LinkedIn. She's easy to find there, no problem. But we really would love to get the book in your hands. If you're in freight or a marketer, absolutely. It's called The Revenue Engine. You can listen to it on Spotify and Audible, and get it anywhere books are sold. So it's called The Revenue Engine. We would love that. That would be terrific. But let's see, Kara's going to ProMat next week, and then like TIA, and then Gartner Symposium and Home Delivery World. I'm a speaker there. So that's just the first half of the year. But we try to stay pretty busy, and we're always looking to fill our calendars while we're there. So, and I'm incredibly fun to have a beer with. So please reach out and let's do that for sure.
Will, I appreciate you joining me. 100%. You guys go out and buy the book. Page 103 in that book fundamentally changed the way that I have approached sales after reading it earlier this year. It was kind of like an aha moment. I literally texted Kara. I said, holy shit. This is like, I've never thought of it this way. So I would highly recommend everybody go out there and get that book. But that's going to be it for today, ladies and gentlemen. As always, if you got value in what you heard, subscribe to the show. If you're feeling really ambitious after this one, which you should be, and you haven't ranked it yet, rank it on iTunes and Spotify, you guys, because that's how we get it out there even more, is because if you saw value, your network's going to see value as well. I appreciate you guys. I love you guys, and we'll be talking to you soon.